and co-founded Pretty and Smart Company, a lifestyle website that empowers women. She's the proud mom to their 2 children, Valencia and Cruz. Anna plays an active role in the conservative movement and is the #1 supporter of her husband. Please help me give a warm Calgary welcome to Anna Poilievre.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be back in Calgary and to be here to celebrate the greatest outdoor show on earth. Happy Stampede! Thank you. But on a personal note, it is even more of a pleasure to be here back home in Calgary, sharing this moment with my husband as we go around and he shares with me his childhood memories and tells me all of the stories of what it was like to be here in Calgary because he's born and raised here and he's very proud Calgarian. As a proud Calgarian who moved to Ontario, and he became a very strong and committed member of Parliament in Ontario. This gives him a great perspective of the different issues that the country is facing in different parts of the country. I, on the other hand, I am born in Venezuela. But I grew up in Quebec, en français, and I too like to share childhood stories with my husband and telling him what it was like to growing up as an immigrant and in Quebec. Together, those different backgrounds, combined with our shared values, create a magnificent unity that allow us to understand the different challenges facing Canadians across the country. It also allows us to understand every time that we're on the ground and that we meet everyday people and the common sense issues that they bring to us. Those different backgrounds and those shared values, that unity is what makes our couple so strong. And that is the unity that we want for our Canada. Now, embarking on this journey is a great sacrifice, I won't lie to you. So I can promise you that we wouldn't be away from our babies if we didn't believe in what we do. So ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that I am very proud of sharing my husband, our strong and loving leader, with you. So without any further ado, please welcome my husband, Pierre Poilievre.
I love you too. Boy, after that introduction, I'm not sure I even need to give a speech. Isn't she fantastic? It's been fun to share some of my childhood memories with Anna over the last few days, although I'm not sure I can tell all the stories from this stage. But they're good ones. You know, I grew up just on the other side of the Glenmore Reservoir, actually a little further south, way down in Shaughnessy. Used to be the end of the universe down there. You remember that? When I first arrived, there was a house on every third lot. There were tumbleweeds blowing around, and I was the paper boy, going door to door, delivering the Calgary Sun, spreading the message. And I worked at the Calgary Stampede one summer, picking up trash from the tables and taking it over to the dumpster so I know how to clean up a good mess, which means I'll be ready to take over when Trudeau's gone. I remember walking with my dog, Champ, down in Fish Creek Park, hiking in the Rockies, getting into the odd fist fight behind the 7-Eleven on Shaughnessy Drive. And actually, he used to come here when I was a kid. They used to bring the elementary school kids here to Heritage Park. Do they still do that? They do. We'd dress up like it was 1905, and we'd sit there in the old schoolhouse, just like they would have done at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. Even got the strap a few times, I think. But those were good memories. And I feel right at home here. I'm not sure that Mr. Trudeau felt at home here over the last few days, eh? He was going around town trying to find somebody who would support his 61 cent a liter carbon tax, and no one was buying in. Our excellent and very strong Premier Danielle Smith told him exactly where to go. Feeling so dejected that he wasn't getting the Hollywood treatment that he's accustomed to, he even snuck into a senior's home, expecting to be received like a celebrity. He walked up to a lady and said, "Do you know who I am?" She said, "No, but if you ask the nurse, she'll tell you who you are." It's good for the mighty to be made low, isn't it? I have a few other memories from my childhood here in this part of the country. Of course, I was born in 1979. 1979. A few of them here. Do we have some Henry Wisewood graduates? Yeah. And a few years after that, along came something called the National Energy Program. You remember that? What a time it was. Inflation was at 12%. Interest rates had skyrocketed. We had to leave our home in Deer Run to move out to Shaughnessy because we couldn't make those monthly payments anymore. The Western energy sector was under attack. Suicides were on the rise. Crime was raging out of control. A guy named Trudeau was prime minister. Does that remind you of anything? Yeah. And here we are today, all these years later, repeating exactly the same mistakes. The cost of living is rising. Hard work doesn't pay. Housing costs have doubled, and people living in their parents' basements till they're age 45. Crime and chaos, drugs and disorder are common now in our streets, and our freedoms are under attack while the Prime Minister disrespects and dishonors Western Canadians just like his father did. That's the reality of today. But let me tell you about the solid foundation upon which we built this country. The foundation that allowed us to recover from the first Trudeau and usher in an unprecedented era of prosperity for Albertans and Canadians. And I started off by having my wife on the stage because she came here as a refugee from Venezuela. That the people that would have been coming to Alberta when the era that this heritage park commemorates was underway came for exactly the same reasons. They came from places where they were persecuted religiously, where there were no economic opportunities, where they were servants and not masters, had no hope of ever owning land. And so what did they do? They came out to the last best West, God's country. They were given nothing but a little bit of land, undeveloped, cold, hard, solitude, difficulty. They didn't want free stuff, they wanted freedom. And that freedom they came from all across Europe. They came from China. They got small land grants. They opened corner stores like the kind you can see if you take a little walk around this beautiful outdoor museum. And they carved an existence for themselves out of that land. They did not come here, though, for the land. They didn't come here for the weather. They came here for something that was in scarce supply almost everywhere else on earth. They came here for freedom. In fact, yes, they did. En fait, le premier ministre de ce temps-là était Wilfrid Laurier, un libéral. Vous me permettez de dire quelques mots généreux par rapport à un libéral. C'est la seule fois que je vais le faire. If you'll forgive me for saying a few nice words about one liberal. He was the prime minister at the time, Wilfrid Laurier. And he was asked, what is Canada's nationality? Now, if he had been a European leader, that would have been a very simple question to answer. He would have just replied by the local population in his country. If he was a French leader, he would have said that the nationality of his nation was French. England, English. German, German, right? But here in Canada, we were already mixed up. We had Scots, Irish, English, Ukrainians, Asians. We, of course, had our Indigenous First Peoples, and therefore it was impossible to define our nationality by ethnicity, religion, or any of those other characteristics. And so he answered, Canada is free, and freedom is its nationality. And so it is today. He believed in erasing the differences rather than hardening them. He believed in individual identity and personal merit rather than group identity and collectivism that we see today. He believed that individuals should have the freedom to make their own choices. He believed in the freedom of enterprise, freedom of trade, freedom of religion, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. Those were things that liberals used to believe in. After all, the root word of liberal is liberty. And you know, liberals always believed in liberty while conservatives believed in conserving it. That's why we had this common sense consensus for so long in Canada. What we see with Justin Trudeau today is an entirely different ideological creature. He believes in controlling your money by raising a carbon tax to 61 cents a liter. He believes in controlling your industry by destroying the energy sector in this province. He believes in controlling your thoughts and words by censoring the internet. He believes in dividing people into groups so that they can more easily be controlled. This is not a more extreme form of liberalism. This is the opposite of liberalism. Wokeism is about nothing more than control. More power in his hands, less freedom for the people. It is exactly the opposite of what we need in this country, and that is why we will restore the Canada that you know and that we love, a Canada which is the freest nation on earth. We're going to bring home lower prices, starting by axing the Liberal carbon tax to bring down the price of energy. Tell you a little story about the Little Miracles of Manotick. It's a little village south of Ottawa where they grow tomatoes in a greenhouse. And the only problem is Trudeau's carbon tax applies on the CO2 that they release into the greenhouse, even though it's absorbed by the plant life. Apparently he missed that day in science class. And so what is the end result of this? It's more affordable to buy Mexican tomatoes in Manotick than Manotick tomatoes in Manotick. What is the environmental consequence? That the consumer is given a price signal to buy the tomato that had to be shipped by truck and train burning fossil fuels all the way across the continent rather than the more environmentally friendly option, which is right next door. By lowering the carbon tax and removing the penalties that the Trudeau government is putting on our fertilizer, we will allow our farmers once again to be the most productive and produce the most food so we can feed our nation and protect our earth. You know, if you have a nation with 10 loaves of bread and $10, it's $1 a loaf. Simple equation. If you double the number of dollars to 20, while still producing the same amount of bread. You got 20 bucks for 10 loaves. It's now $2 a loaf. That's what happened when you create cash. Over the last 3 years, Trudeau has created $400 billion of new cash. He's doubled the national debt. This has bid up the cost of everything that we buy, giving us the generational highs in inflation that we have not seen since, well, his father, right? This was an entirely predictable phenomenon. Any common sense trucker or farmer could have told you this would happen. Our solution is a government that lives within its means, leaves more in your pocket, and lets you get ahead. We will bring in a common sense dollar-for-dollar law requiring the government find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending so that the taxpayer can catch up with the cost of government. You've been pinching your pennies long enough. It's time for the government to start pinching its pennies too. And we're going to make work pay again, right? It doesn't pay to work in this country anymore. A waitress earning $60,000 a year who goes out and earns another dollar, loses 80 cents on that dollar to clawbacks of her child benefit, income tax, payroll tax, gas tax, and carbon tax just to get to work. If she's earning $25 an hour, she keeps 5 of those $25. No one should be expected to work for $5 an hour in this country of ours. We will reform the programs, reduce the clawbacks, and cut income tax to make hard work pay by ensuring that people bring home more of each and every dollar that they earn. And we're going to allow for more powerful paychecks for our brilliant immigrants. We have 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses prevented from working in our hospitals today. Why? Because they can't get their qualifications tested, let alone recognized. I spoke to the ambassador from the Philippines recently. She said only 11% of Filipino nurses living in Canada are allowed to practice in this country, even though in the States they can write a test and get to work within 2 weeks. A Poilievre-led government will bring in a blue seal testing standard, like the red seal that already exists for our trades, so that newcomers to this country or Canadian-born kids trained abroad can take an exam, prove they are qualified, get to work, and end the backlogs in our hospitals so that we can get the health care that we need. Absolutely. We have to end this gatekeeper economy that's holding back our energy sector as well. Justin Trudeau wants to shut down Canadian oil and gas to the profit of foreign dictators, and we won't let him. We will bring our energy sector home and charging back, will we not? You know, his view is the best way to protect the environment is to destroy Canada's single biggest industry, our single biggest net export, and cede the ground to polluting nations that have no environmental standards whatsoever. Today, under Trudeau, we import 130,000 barrels of overseas oil every single day, even though we have the 3rd biggest supply of oil on planet Earth. And our companies have the plans to make it the lowest emitting source of oil on planet Earth. So why not instead of, that's right, you can always interrupt my remarks to applaud our oil and gas sector. Thank you. Instead of shutting down our industry, why don't we approve more projects and use the money to make our energy sector even greener and even cleaner than it already is? Let's back carbon capture and storage. Let's bring in small modular nuclear reactors for more affordable emissions-free power. And let's build Canadian pipelines with Canadian steel to deliver Canadian energy to Canadian markets. And then there's our natural gas. We have 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas right beneath our feet. And yet, Trudeau was faced with 15 proposed liquefaction projects when he took office that would have allowed us to export that gas around the world. Today, we do not export a single cubic foot of natural gas overseas, not one. Trudeau says there's no business case. Well, nobody told the Americans who've built 7 of these facilities in the last decade. Nobody told the Qataris who've doubled their production. Nobody told Putin, who's funding his entire war by selling natural gas. Nobody told the Germans, who took an import terminal from concept to completion in 194 days. We have an incredible advantage. We have the shortest shipping distances from North America to both Asia and Europe. We have clean hydroelectric power that could be used to liquefy that gas. And how, by the way, do you liquefy gas? Anybody know? You cool it down. And what do we have in Canada? Cold weather. It's our most abundant natural resource, cold weather. In fact, it was so cold in Ottawa last winter, Justin Trudeau was seen with his hands in his own pockets. Prime Minister Poilievre will approve natural gas facilities, will cool that gas down to minus 161 degrees Celsius, ship it to Asia to shut down coal-fired plants over there, ship it to Europe to break European dependence on Putin, and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. Absolutely. Absolutely. Bring it home. Bring the jobs home to this country, the best country in the world. Bring homes workers can afford, somebody has there on a sign. That's a good sign. I remember, my mother's here, Marlene Poilievre. Give her a round of applause. So when we lost our home in Deer Run because of the high interest rates, we moved down, my folks scraped up whatever they could find to make a down payment. And they moved down to Shaughnessy. And the only reason they had a chance to live in a home is because someone was allowed to build a home. And anybody remember that time around that part of the city, way down in the south area? Basically, you blinked, and we went from that tumbleweed in those big open fields to thousands of new homes for deserving young families. Back then, you could actually get a permit to get things built in this country. Now, Canada has the second slowest permits of any country in the OECD. In fact, C.D. Howe did a study where they added up the labor, material, land, and profit it takes to build a house in Vancouver and compared it to the actual sale price. And they found there was a $1 million gap between the two. So get this, it costs $1 million more to buy a house than it costs to build one. Why? Well, because it takes 10 years to get a building permit. In fact, in that city, it takes almost $1 million worth of paperwork, delay, consultants, lawyers, fees, taxes, charges to get a house built for every single home. The story is the same right across our country. What is the consequence? Today in Toronto, it actually takes 25 years for the average salary to buy you a down payment on the average house. You used to be able to pay off a mortgage in that time. This house price inflation has now made its way out here to Calgary as well, and even to small villages and hamlets. The problem is that government gatekeepers stand in the way of us getting anything built. And if we were in the same situation today, having lost our home, I don't know where we would have ended up living, because prices have gone up so much and higher interest make those payments even worse. That is 8 years of Justin Trudeau doubling our housing costs. But the good news is we know exactly what to do. We have to get the government gatekeepers out of the way so that we can build again. I will link the number of dollars big cities get for infrastructure to the number of houses they allow to be built. I'll require every single big city in this country increase building permits by 15% every year, or I will fine them by clawing back some of their infrastructure dollars. We are going to give building bonuses to those cities that get out of the way and let builders build. We'll require every single federally funded transit station have high-density apartments approved around it so that our young people can live next to the train and you don't have to drive your kid when he's going out on a date. He can go there himself. And we're going to sell, we got 37,000 big, ugly federal buildings. Many of them are completely empty with so-called virtual work. Empty buildings we're paying to heat and maintain and paying local taxes on them. I'm going to sell off 6,000 of those buildings. And you know something, Shuv? It warms my heart to think of the beautiful family pulling up to move into their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. We're going to bring millions of homes for our people to live in, and we're going to make sure that those homes are built in safe communities, aren't we? We're going to bring home safety again. Crime, chaos, drugs and disorder are common now in our streets. 32% increase in violent crime, 92% increase in gang-related violence. Justin Trudeau's catch and release policy was responsible for a young person just the other day being stabbed on Toronto's transit system. Someone out on bail again. In Vancouver, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times. That's 150 arrests per person per year. But under Trudeau's bail law, they get arrested within hours, not days or weeks, hours of being arrested. The police will tell you that they arrest the same people 3 or 4 times in a day, and the criminals laugh at the cops because they know they'll be right out on the street. Sometimes the cops just drive on by because they know that it's not worth arresting the criminal for fear that they'll be released and put back on the street. My friends, it's gotten so bad in Ottawa. There's an incredible robbery in Ottawa. Guy walked up to a man, pulled a gun, said, "Give me all your money." Man said, "Wait a sec, do you know who I am?" The robber said, "No." He said, "I'm Justin Trudeau." And the robber said, "Well, in that case, give me all my money." But a Pierre Poilievre government will reverse the catch and release laws. We will bring in jail and not bail for repeat violent criminals. We'll keep our streets safe again. We'll stop giving out taxpayer-funded narcotics and reverse the decriminalization of crack and heroin. We will invest in treatment and recovery to bring home our loved ones drug-free. And we will bring home our freedom again. Our freedom, the land of freedom to which people came over so many centuries and always for the same reason. That freedom is now under attack, as Justin Trudeau has passed laws that have actually made news articles disappear from the internet. Ironically, he says these laws are designed to promote Canadian content. They promote content by censoring content. You follow the logic? We know that it has nothing to do with Canadiana. He's already said he believes Canada does not even have any kind of national identity. He says we are a post-national country and that there's no identity to promote. Therefore, that can't be the real motive of his law. He wants to give the CRTC the ability to manipulate the algorithms of the internet that determine what shows up in your newsfeed. Margaret Atwood, not a conservative, said that this law is creeping totalitarianism. We know that Trudeau believes he should be able to decide what you think. He's been trying to censor people since he took office. In fact, we see it on our university campuses, where they kicked out Jordan Peterson for expressing politically incorrect views. My view is if you don't like Jordan Peterson, why don't you try debating him? Good luck with that, right? But of course, Trudeau would never do that because they know that if they have a debate, they will lose the debate. We want debates. I don't want to silence Justin Trudeau, and often he makes my very best arguments for me. I want everyone to speak freely. We have Section 2B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. To be or not to be. That is the question. I will honor the Charter, repeal the online and on-campus censorship, and stand up for freedom of expression for all Canadians. Absolutely. Freedom. We will uphold freedom here and everywhere. We will stop interference by Beijing in our democracy. Canadians should choose their government, not communist dictators from abroad. We'll bring in a foreign influence registry to track and expose any who are paid by foreign dictators to influence and manipulate our politics. We will ban all of my ministers and top government officials from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. Thank you. There will be no more mandates, no central bank digital currency, no mandated digital ID. And we will recognize once and for all that parents come first in raising our children. Their values should come before the government's imposition. Justin Trudeau needs to butt out and let provinces run schools and parents raise children. And most importantly of all today, I reiterate, once again, the West will have a strong and deserved place in our Confederation. I will put an end once and for all to the Trudeau mentality that the West should just pay up and shut up. This is the beating heart of our economy. Western Canadians are among the most patriotic of all Canadians. They deserve to be treated with respect. We will ensure that your energy sector and your agricultural sector has the strength and the place that it deserves. We will stop the unconstitutional attack on our hunters, our farmers, our sport shooters, and our Indigenous people by reversing the ban on hunting rifles that Justin Trudeau has brought in. We will ensure that the West is given a fair deal on all of the economic and fiscal policies. The West should have its fair share of seats, its fair share of money, and its fair share of voice in this great Canada of ours. As I said at the outset, you heard the introduction from my wife. And you might be thinking, when she stands next to me, what's she doing with him? No, but seriously, how does the son of a teenage mother adopted by two school teachers from South Calgary end up married to a beautiful and brilliant young refugee from Venezuela who started her life in Quebec? How does that happen? It happens because this is a country where we realize all that we have in common. We don't divide ourselves by group identity. We unite each other by our individual humanity. We realize that the common story, the common thread that has led the immigrants who came and settled this land and inspired this heritage park had the same story as Anna's story. They came here with nothing in their pockets but big hearts and big dreams. Much like Anna, her family came with next to nothing, lived in a small apartment, crammed into a tiny space. Her father was able to rebuild his life, having started his economic life here, working, picking berries in a farm field. Now helps his wife run a small business. His kids have grown up to be a soldier, a brilliant young lady and former political advisor, a carpenter, and a nurse. That is the promise of Canada that unites all of our hopes and dreams together. You'll realize that across races, religions, and regions, we have a lot more in common than what divides us and seems to tear us apart. When I was in Atlantic Canada, they were complaining about the same carbon tax that is impoverishing the people in Alberta. Quand je suis au Québec, les gens sont fâchés du fait que le fédéral essaie d'imposer ses pouvoirs sur les compétences provinciaux. The Quebecers are just as angry as Western Canadians about the excessive power and the intrusion into provincial jurisdiction that we see across our country. The great way to unite us all is through freedom, because this is the difference between control and freedom. There's only so much control to go around. So if one person gets more, someone else must get yet less. That's why people fight over control, but they fight for freedom. Why? Because there's enough freedom for everybody. And your freedom is someone else's freedom. If your Muslim friend has religious freedom, you as a Christian will have religious freedom. If your local small businessman has more economic freedom from red tape and tax, your son might have more economic freedom to go get a job there working at his business, and you might have more economic freedom buying more affordable goods from him. One person's freedom is another person's freedom. That's why instead of divide and conquer, we should unite for freedom in this country. And that's what we will do. We will unite for freedom. In a country that works for the people who do the work, where the son of a teenage mother adopted by school teachers can dream to run for prime minister, where it doesn't matter if your name is Smith or Singh, whether your name is Charles or Chang, whether your name is Poilievre or Patel, Martin or Mohammed, if you are prepared to work hard, support your community, raise your family and your kids, you can achieve anything. This is what we have in common. The common sense of the common people, united for our common home, your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much.
All right, Leader, thank you so much